He rescued a wounded beast. Not knowing it was the Baroness's pet, the creature hit the ground, 60 feet from Cole's front door, and the sound it made was wrong in every way. Not the crash. The crash was loud enough, a splintering of pine branches and a wet thud against frozen soil that rattled the cabin windows. That part made sense. Things fell from the sky sometimes, especially out here on the edge of the Kessler Range, especially since the transit lanes opened up 18 months ago. Survey drones with dead batteries, but the sound after, that low, grinding keen, almost too low to hear, the kind of frequency that lived in your back teeth and made your jaw ache, that was not a machine. Cole Navarro had been a wilderness medic for 11 years. He knew the sound of something alive and in pain. He grabbed his kit before he was fully awake, shoved his feet into boots unlaced, and ran. The thing was bigger than he expected, crumpled against the base of a spruce tree. Its hide was the deep red-brown of old copper, scaled along the flanks, but smooth across the chest and face. And it was breathing in short, ragged pulls that told Cole its lungs were working, but not comfortably. It had 4 arms. 2 were tucked against its body. 2 were extended. Fingers, talons, dug into the frozen ground like it was trying to hold on. Fully amber, no white, no pupil Cole could find, just solid rings of amber light that tracked him the moment they opened and did not look away. The creature made a sound, not the keen, something different, clipped to his collar since the transit lanes opened because his neighbor Petra had told him he was an idiot if he didn't wear one out here, hummed against his throat. "Do not," it translated. "Do not come close." Cole exhaled. "I'm going to stand right here then. Is that all right?" The creature's chest moved. "The warning is for your safety," the translator said. "Not mine." Cole looked at the extended talons, looked at the copper-scaled arms, looked at the blood, dark, almost black, pooling under the creature's left flank where something had torn through the hide. "You're bleeding pretty seriously," Cole said. "I am aware. That's a through wound. Whatever made it came out the other side. You've got maybe an hour before blood loss becomes the main problem." The amber eyes did not. "You understand biology?" "I'm a medic." A pause. The grinding keen rose briefly. A breath of pure pain the creature seemed to suppress midway through, jaw clenching. "A healer," the translator offered, adjusting. "Yeah, of humans, mostly." The transit lanes made that a good idea. The creature looked at him for a long moment. One of the tucked arms uncurled slightly, then stopped, like it wanted to reach for something and decided not to. "If you approach," it said through the translator, "you must not be startled. My reflexes will act before my mind can stop them. If you startle me, I will hurt you without meaning to." "I appreciate the heads up," Cole said. "I'm going to move slow. I'm going to narrate every single thing I do. You stop me, I stop. Deal?" The amber eyes stayed on him. "Deal," the translator said. Cole unzipped his kit on the ground first, so the creature could see everything inside. The broad-spectrum coagulant spray he'd started carrying 18 months ago specifically for a bottle of saline. "I'm walking toward you now," Cole said. "No tools yet." He crossed the frozen ground in 12 steps, crouched 6 feet out, waited. The creature's talons dragged once across the soil. A reflex, not an attack. "I'm going to kneel beside your left side," Cole said. "I need to see the wound." He knelt. Not unsurvivable. Not yet. But the kind of wound that required immediate packing, or the hour. The surrounding tissue had already begun to swell in a pattern Cole associated with internal pressure, the body trying to compensate for what it was losing. "This is going to need packing," Cole said. "It's going to hurt." "I know what wound packing is." "Do you want something for the pain first?" "I have 2 options. I don't know your biology well enough to promise either one will work, but one is topical and one is... Do it without," the creature said. The creature did not make a sound for 4 minutes straight, which told Cole more about its discipline than anything else could have. The talons carved 4 parallel furrows in the frozen ground, deepening with each pass of the pressure clamp. And at minute 3, one of the 4 arms rose 6 inches off the ground and then came back down. Cole kept his breathing steady. "Almost done," he said. "One more clamp." The creature exhaled, a long, slow release of air that fogged in the cold. "You are calm," it said. "I try to be. Most humans who see me run. Running doesn't help anybody." Cole sealed the last clamp and leaned back, checking his work. "Not fixed. You need more than I can do out here. But you've got time now." The amber eyes. Then, for the first time, they moved away from his face, down to his hands. The kit, the bloody gauze he'd set aside in a neat pile. "You organized your discards," the creature said. "Habit. A careful habit." Cole looked at it. "Or do you have a name?" "Sorry, I don't know your species protocol." A pause. "I have a name. It is not pronounceable in your language. Can I call you something?" The amber eyes came back. "You may call me Veth," it said. "I'm Cole." Veth's talons released the ground for the first time since Cole had knelt beside it. Not all the way, but the grip loosened. "Cole," it said, tasting the word in whatever way the translator rendered it. "You are not afraid of me." "I'm a little afraid of you," Cole admitted. "Those talons are 6 inches long. And yet you are still here?" "Yeah." Cole started packing, his kit back up. "I'm still here. Somewhere above the tree line, beyond the frozen dark of the Kessler Range. Something was moving through the sky. Cole didn't see it. The amber eyes tracked it for exactly 2 seconds before looking away. He'd learned, 11 years into this work, that the questions worth asking announce themselves in their own time. He handed Veth the last of his saline. Slowly, Veth took it in one taloned hand, with a steadiness that contradicted everything its injuries should have allowed. Cole made a note of that too. The morning after Cole packed a wound the size of his forearm on a copper-scaled alien he'd named, Veth in his head, his neighbor Petra drove up his access road at a speed that suggested either news or emergency. He was on the porch when her truck stopped. The look on her face was both. "You didn't check the alerts last night," she said. "I was busy." A transit vessel had an emergency separation event. One of the high-tier registry pods ejected somewhere over the Kessler Range. Petra was already pulling out her datapad, turning it to face him. "The beacon is pinging from your tree line, Cole." Cole looked at the datapad. He looked at the coordinates. Then he looked over his shoulder toward the spruce tree where Veth was currently sitting up, drinking a second bottle of saline, watching him with those amber eyes through the cabin window. "That's a Tier 3 registry signal. Do you know what Tier 3 means?" "It means whoever was in. That pod is somebody important. It means whoever was in that pod has a cortege." Petra lowered. "They'll have already triangulated the signal. They'll be here in..." The sky split open. The ships that came out of transit fold almost never made the dramatic entrance humans expected. They arrived the way storms arrived. Suddenly present, suddenly large, the absence of warning more unnerving than any sound. Moving with the kind of coordinated precision that made Cole's chest tighten in a way Petra grabbed his arm. Veth, inside the cabin, did not move. The largest ship settled into a hover above Cole's tree line, and a boarding ramp descended, and the figure at the top of that ramp was not the kind of figure Cole had any frame of reference. She was tall, 2 meters at minimum, maybe more, the same copper-scaled species as Veth, but armored, plated across the shoulders and chest in something that was not decorative. Every movement deliberate in the way that spoke to either training or authority or both. Her eyes were amber too. But where Veth's had been a warm, steady glow, hers were the amber of old fire. Behind her, 6 more figures. The kind of weapons Cole recognized as energy-based, because Petra had spent 3 months making. Him watched transit lane safety briefings after the lanes opened. The armored figure stopped at the base of the ramp and said something. Cole's translator bead hummed. "Where is she?" Not a question. Cole turned around and looked through the window of his cabin. Veth was looking back at him. The amber eyes were steady. The talons were in her lap, loose, open. She'd known they were coming. She'd known since last night. Cole turned back to the armored figure. "She's in my cabin," he said. "I packed and clamped a through wound on her left flank last night. She needs surgical repair, but the immediate blood loss is controlled." The armored figure stared at him for a long moment with the kind of stare Cole associated with people recalculating something they had already decided. "You are the human who found her." "I heard her land," Cole said. "I'm a medic." "You treated her. She was bleeding." "That's what medics do." Petra beside him made a very small sound. Cole would later identify it as the sound a person made when they realized their neighbor had absolutely no idea what he'd walked into. The armored figure descended the last step of the ramp, the kind of deliberate marking that did not exist for decoration. "I am Commandant Sarah Dahl," she said. "Veth is the Baroness's companion, the single most protected non-combatant in this sector." Cole let that land. "She said her name was Veth," he offered. "It is one of her names." She didn't mention the Baroness part. She would not have. Sarah, Dahl's amber eyes moved to the cabin window, to Veth behind the glass, and something moved through them that Cole could not name but recognized anyway. Relief, the kind that arrived angry. "May I enter your structure?" "Yes," Cole said. "Take your shoes off. I have a clean floor." Petra made the sound again. Sarah Dahl looked at him. The Commandant removed her boots at the door. Cole would think about that for a long time afterward. That she did it without hesitation, without questioning, the authority in her frame unchanged, as if accommodating a reasonable request was not a concession, but simply what you did. Inside, Veth watched Sarah Dahl cross the cabin floor. The amber eyes came up. "She worries about me." "I gathered," Cole said. "She will now worry about you." "Why?" Veth's talons opened on her lap, and the translator produced something that, in any language, Cole was fairly certain, meant you are no longer anonymous. She will want to thank him. Sarah Dahl said nothing. She was already pulling a medical scanner from her belt, running it along the wound, reading the output with an expression Cole associated with someone doing triage math. She will also want to ask him, Veth added, how he kept his hands so steady. Cole leaned against the doorframe. Outside, the three vessels hummed in the cold air. One of the armed figures had climbed down the ramp and was standing in his yard, looking at his woodpile with an expression Cole could not read through the face guard. "I've had practice," Cole said. Veth looked at him with those amber eyes. "I know," she said. And something in the translator's rendering of those two words was very quiet and very certain, the way things were certain when they had been observed rather than assumed. Petra tugged on Cole's sleeve from behind. "You are in so much trouble," she whispered. The Baroness arrived on the third day. Cole had spent those 3 days under a polite but absolute occupation of his property that he was handling better than Petra thought he should. 2 of Sarah Dahl's household guard had established a perimeter. They were professional about it. They did not enter the cabin without asking. One of them had actually helped him restack his woodpile after a windstorm knocked it sideways on. But they were present. The kind of presence that reminded Cole that the word polite and the word temporary were not. Cole checked her every 6 hours, changed the packing on day 2 when the first round showed appropriate clotting, started her on a broad-spectrum cellular repair compound that Sarah Dahl had produced from the ship's medical supply, and which Cole had spent 4 hours cross-referencing against his own kit before agreeing to administer. The wound was closing, not fast enough for surgical discharge, but fast enough that Cole stopped doing math about permanent damage. On the morning of day 3, Veth told him the Baroness was coming. "How do you know?" Cole asked. "I know her travel patterns," Veth said. "She will have delayed as long as she could without it becoming its own statement. 3 days is the exact length of delay that communicates concern without communicating. Panic," Cole considered this. "She manages her appearances. She manages everything," Veth said without weight. "Do I need to do anything to prepare?" The amber eyes settled on him. "You could clean your floor." My floor is clean. Then you are prepared. The Baroness arrived in a single vessel. Cole recognized immediately that this was itself a statement. That she had come alone, or nearly alone, into the territory of a species whose medic had handled her ward. And the absence of a show of force was the show of force. She was smaller than Sarah Dahl. That surprised Cole, though he could not have said why size had become his measuring stick. Where the Commandant was armored, the Baroness wore nothing that looked defensive. Layered fabric in deep blue black, cut with a precision that reminded Cole of formal human dress, but moved differently, more like armor that had been convinced to behave like clothing. Her scales were darker than Veth's, almost black at the edges. She descended the ramp and walked to Cole's door and knocked. The Baroness looked at him. Her eyes were not amber. They were the pale gold of early morning light, and they assessed him in a sweep that lasted less than 2 seconds and covered, Cole was fairly certain, everything. "You are Cole Navarro," she said. "Yes." "I am Velton Orr." She paused. "I am told you kept my hand steady." Cole blinked. "I think Veth may have told that story in a particular way." "She tells all stories in a particular way." Something moved through the pale gold eyes. "May I come in?" "Yes." Shoes off. Inside, Veth was sitting up for the first time without Cole's assistance. She had, at some point in the night, combed her hair. 4 long braids of scaled growth along her skull, dark red. Cole had not known what to call them. And she was wearing something other than the torn garment she'd arrived in, something Sarah Dahl must have brought from the ship. She looked, Cole realized, like someone who had prepared for this. The Baroness sat across from Veth, and they looked at each other for a long moment, and nothing passed between them that Cole could identify, except everything. Then the Baroness turned to Cole, who had made tea because he did not know what else to do, and was standing beside his kitchen counter, holding 2 cups. "I want to understand what happened," Velton Orr said. "Not the incident report." "Yours," Cole told her. "All of it. The sound, the frozen ground, the amber eyes warning him away. The 4 minutes of wound packing where the talons carved the earth and neither of them spoke, except for his running narration of every move." She did not interrupt. She did not look at Veth. When Cole finished, she was quiet for a moment. "You narrated your movements," she said. "She asked me to." She said her reflexes would act before her mind could stop them. She was right. Velton Orr's pale gold eyes held his. Most beings who hear that warning step back, or they do not hear it at all because they have already run. Running doesn't help anybody. Ae. That is an unusual philosophy for someone in your position. "I'm a medic," Cole said. "It's basically the job description." The pale gold eyes moved to his hands, resting around the teacup, then back to his face. "She trusts you," the Baroness said, not like a question. "I think she trusts my hands," Cole said. "I think those are different things." The Baroness looked at him for a long time. "But in my experience, the second rarely happens without the first beginning." Sarah Dahl appeared in the doorway. She had been outside, Cole realized, giving this conversation its privacy, and said something in a language Cole's bead didn't catch. "I would like to ask you something," Velton Orr said. "Okay." "My household has a position. It was created when the transit lanes opened, and it has not been filled because the qualifications are specific." She set down her cup, calm under conditions that alarm most beings, known now by at least one member of my household to be exactly what the qualifications describe. Cole was quiet. "I am not asking for an answer today," the Baroness said. "I am asking you to know the question exists." Veth, across the room, had not moved. The amber eyes were on Cole with the patience of someone who had already done the calculation and was waiting for him to catch up. Cole looked at the Baroness. "What's the territory like?" he asked, and the pale gold eyes did something Cole was fairly certain qualified as surprised. "Cold in the northern sectors. There is significant wilderness." "Wildlife?" "Considerable." Cole thought about his cabin, the woodpile that a household guard had restacked without being asked. I'll need a week to put my property in order, he said. The Baroness nodded once. Precisely. A week, she said. Yes. Cole spent his last week in the Kessler range the way he had spent the previous 11. He winterized the cabin with the thoroughness of someone who did not know if they were coming back, but wanted the option to remain, locked his medical library into waterproof cases, and labeled every box in 2 languages, which was new, which he did not comment on to himself. Petra came every day. She helped where he let her and watched where he didn't. And on the 4th day, she sat on his porch steps and said, I think you know this is insane. Probably, Cole said. You met her 4 days ago. Veth. I know when I met her. And now you're going to go work for a Baroness on a different planet. Cole sealed the last medical case. You make it sound simple. I make it sound like what it is. Cole sat down beside her. The Kessler range was doing the thing it did in late autumn, going golden gray at the tree line, the sky above it the deep blue of real cold coming. She said her reflexes would act before her mind could stop them, Cole said. And then she held still for 4 minutes while I worked. That's not nothing. Petra was quiet, and the Baroness took her shoes off, Cole added. What? I asked her to. When she came in, she did it without hesitation. Cole looked at the tree line. I've met a lot of people who wear authority like it's a coat they can't take off. She just took her shoes off. Petra looked at him for a long time. Then she looked at the tree line. You're going to be careful, she said. Always. You're going to actually calm me. Always. She leaned her shoulder against his. They sat like that for a while, the range going gold around them, and Cole let himself be in it for the last time as someone whose world had fixed edges. On day 6, he walked his property line. He knew the specific lean of every significant tree, the way the creek moved in the cold, the exact location of the marmot den by the eastern fence that had been occupied every spring for. He walked it slowly. He did not try to memorize it. He was past the age where he believed memory was what made a place matter. On day 7, Sarah Dahl came alone. She landed in the meadow behind the cabin. Not a dramatic landing, just a small shuttle, setting down with the same economy of motion Cole had come to associate with everyone in the... She knocked on the door. She removed her boots without being asked. The Baroness asked me to escort you, Sarah said. I know. The Commandant looked around the cabin. The bare walls where Cole had taken down his certifications and rolled them into a waterproof tube. You are thorough, she said. I try to be. Sarah looked at him. The amber eyes held something Cole had learned to recognize over the past week. The particular expression of someone reassessing a prior conclusion. When Veth described you, Sarah said, I expected someone younger. Someone who acted without thinking. That's not usually who keeps steady hands. No. Sarah, it is not. She picked up one of the labeled cases. Just picked it up, the same way her soldier had restacked the woodpile. Not a grand gesture, just a practical one. Cole picked up the rest. They loaded the shuttle in 4 trips. Cole locked the cabin. He stood on the porch for a moment with the key in his hand. Old habit. The kind the body did before the mind had finished deciding. And then he put it under the flower pot for Petra and went down the steps. In the shuttle, Sarah Dahl flew without speaking, which Cole appreciated. The Kessler range spread out below them, gold and gray, enormous in the way that wilderness was enormous, the kind of scale that made the human objects inside it look deliberate. His cabin was very small from above. Is she recovered? Cole asked. Veth is fully mobile as of this morning. The wound is closed. She will have a scar. She know that? I told her. What did she say? Sarah Dahl was quiet. She said she had earned it, the Commandant said. And then she asked what your quarters would look like. Cole looked out the shuttle window. What did you tell her? I told her I did not know. Sarah paused. She seemed to find that unacceptable. She requisitioned a review of the household medical wing and sent 17 annotated notes to the quartermaster. Cole absorbed this. About my quarters. About the medical wing, Sarah said. She included your quarters as a subsection. The range was behind them now. The sky was getting the color it got near transit fold points, a kind of deep, saturated blue that was not quite the blue of atmosphere. She worries about details, Cole said. She worries about people, Sarah said, with the particular flatness of someone stating something they had long since accepted. The details are just how it looks from the outside. Cole thought about amber eyes tracking him. The moment they opened, about talons releasing the frozen ground for the first time. I know. The transit point opened ahead of them, and the Kessler range disappeared, and Cole Navarro, wilderness medic, 11 years, clean floor, went through it without looking back, which was not the same as not caring. It was the opposite. The Baroness's territory was exactly as described. Vast, cold in the north, considerable wildlife. What Velton Orr had not mentioned was that the medical wing of her household complex was also the size of Cole's entire property back in the Kessler range, or that his quarters had a window that looked out over something Veth had decided he needed to see, which was a tree line, different trees, scaled wrong, bark the color of ash, but unmistakably a tree line, unmistakably wild, unmistakably chosen for him. He stood at that window for a long time on the first morning. Veth came to find him at noon. She moved without a limp, which Cole filed as good data, and she carried 2 cups of something that was not tea but was hot and smelled like pine, which he filed as intentional. She handed him one without ceremony. You chose the window view, Cole said. I told the quartermaster what to look for. Veth stood beside him. Outside, something large moved through the ash-barked tree line, slow and unhurried. I did not know what the right thing looked like. I described your land. How did you know what my land looked like? You spent 2 days inside my cabin. You described it, Veth said, while you were working. You narrated. Cole thought back. 4 minutes, frozen ground, running narration of every move. He had not been narrating for her, exactly, or not only for her. The habit of keeping the room steady by filling it with something known. Apparently he had described a marmot den. You didn't have to do this, Cole said. I know, but you did. You held still, Veth said, and your hands did not shake. She looked at the tree line, the large, slow thing moving through it. I do not know how to owe someone that, so I started with the window. Cole drank his not tea. He made a note to ask what it was. The large thing in the trees stopped. Cole could see, even at distance, that it was looking at them, or at the window, or at the building. The attention of a creature deciding whether something was threat or landscape. Then it moved on. What is that? Cole asked. The local name does not translate. It is a grazer. They move through here every season. Veth watched it go. They are not dangerous unless cornered. I wasn't going to corner it. I know. Veth looked. That is also why I started with the window. Cole spent his first week learning the medical wing. With the same methodical attention he had given his property line walk back home. Every piece of equipment. Cross-referencing the supply manifests against what he knew. Flagging what he didn't. Leaving annotated questions in the household communication system that Sarah Dahl answered with an efficiency that told Cole she had been waiting for exactly this kind of engagement. The household had 43 members. Cole learned every name. He did not rush this. Names were data. And data was the difference between a patient and a stranger. And Cole had very little use for strangers. On day 9, a household guard came to his medical wing with a laceration from an equipment repair. Human stitches were not correct for his physiology. Cole spent 40 minutes working out the right approach with the guard's quiet cooperation. And when he was done, the guard looked at the neat closure on his forearm and said something the translator rendered as thorough. Thank you, Cole said. It is the correct word, Bonante, the guard said. On day 11, Sarah Dahl came for her first voluntary consultation. Not an order, not a Baroness's directive. She sat on the examination table in Cole's medical wing and said she had a persistent pressure behind her left eye that had been there for 6 months and that she had not reported because Cole did not say anything about the 6 months. He took 30 minutes with it, ran the scans he could run, asked the questions that mattered, and told her it was a tension response in the muscles at the base of her skull that was compressing a nerve cluster, probably from the weight of the armor she wore during long patrol rotations. He showed her the exercises. She did them without complaint, with the same quality of compliance she'd shown removing her boots. "Come back in a week," Cole said. "Tell me if the pressure shifts." "It will," Sarah said. She was already standing, already reassembled into the version of herself that moved through the world like a commandant. "I have had this before. It responds to treatment." "Then why didn't you treat it?" Sarah looked at him. The amber eyes were direct and unguarded in a way Cole was beginning to understand was rare. "There was not someone here who would find the right answer," she said. "There was someone who would find a sufficient answer. I have learned to wait for the difference." She left. Cole stood in his medical wing for a while after that. The clean equipment around him, the ash-barked tree line visible through the window if he leaned slightly right. The Baroness came at the end of week 2, not for a consultation. She sat in the chair beside his desk and drank something from a cup she'd brought herself and looked at his organized shelves with the expression Cole had seen on her once before in his cabin when he talked about keeping hands steady. "How are you finding it?" she said. "The equipment is better than anything I've worked with. The personnel are cooperative." Cooperative is a mild word for what they have been. It's the accurate word. The pale gold eyes studied him. "Sarah told me about the examination." "That's between me and Sarah. She told me so I could know that you would keep it between you and her." Beltanor tilted her head slightly, which was what I needed to know. Cole understood then that the Baroness was still running the same calculation she had run in his cabin, only with more data. Every interaction he'd had in her household had been witnessed and logged not by surveillance, but by the simple fact that 43 people with long memories lived and worked together, and he was being trusted the same way the marmot was identified. By pattern, by return, by the consistency of showing up in the same place for the same reasons. "I'm not going anywhere," Cole said. The Baroness looked at him. "I know," she said. "That is what I came to say." Veth appeared in the doorway behind her. She had been there for some time, Cole suspected, leaning against the frame with the patience of someone who did not need to announce themselves. "He organized the medical library," Veth told the Baroness. "I saw. He labeled everything in 2 languages. Yes. The second language is ours." Veth's amber eyes were on Cole. "In 2 weeks." "I had help," Cole said. "You asked for help," Veth said, "which is not the same thing. Most people who need help do not ask for it. They wait for someone to notice." Cole thought about Sarah and the 6 months of managed pain, about Veth, warning him away from 60 feet for his safety, not hers. "I've noticed that." Outside the window, the grazers were moving through the ash-barked tree line again, that unhurried massive migration that happened every season. The creatures turning their faces toward the building for a moment and then moving on. The Baroness finished her drink. The pale gold eyes swept the medical wing one more time. The shelves, the labeled cases, the scans running quietly on the secondary screen. The plant Cole had put on the windowsill on day 3 because it helped him think. "The position," she said, "has no formal name yet. I have been deciding on one." "Take your time," Cole said. "I have." Velton Orr moved toward the door. "We call it, in our language, something that translates to the one who stays." She glanced back at. It seemed accurate. She left. The amber eyes held Cole's with the steadiness of someone who had been tracking a conclusion for 2 weeks and was now watching it arrive. "She almost never names a position herself," Veth said. "I gathered. It means she thinks it will last." Cole turned to look at the window. The grazers were gone. The tree line still, the ash bark pale against the early dark. "The one who stays," he said. "Yes." He thought about his cabin. The key under the flower pot, Petra's shoulder against his, the range going golden. The marmot den that had been occupied every spring for 7 years, which maybe still was, which would continue to be whether he was there to notice or not. The things that stayed did not stay, because they had nowhere to go. They stayed because the place earned it. And Veth, in the amber-lit quiet of the medical wing of the Baroness's household, allowed herself the particular expression Cole had first seen when the Talons finally released the thing after relief. When you have been certain of something for long enough that its arrival feels less like surprise and more like the completion of a sentence you started in the cold, in the dark, 60 feet from a cabin door, when a stranger knelt beside you and said, "I'm still here," and meant it. Cole made a note to ask the quartermaster about a second plant for the windowsill. The medical wing could hold more than one.